My name is Rachel Morgan. I'm 30 years old, and 3 days ago, I was standing on a balcony overlooking the vineyards of Napa Valley, holding a mimosa, and watching my mother unwrap a birthday gift I had chosen with care. 5 minutes later, she told me to leave. She didn't raise her voice, didn't throw a scene, just calmly said, "Stop ruining the trip with your sister. Just leave." I remember the sound of the wind rustling the olive trees, the distant hum of a golf cart in the distance, and the way my mimosa glass trembled in my hand, not from cold, but disbelief. Before I can continue my story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. On the surface, we looked like the kind of family people envy. My mom, Elaine, a retired school principal, exuded poise and grace. My younger sister, Sierra, always posted the most curated snapshots of sisterly affection and spontaneous laughter. And me, I'm the one behind the camera, booking the trip, reserving the tables, making sure mom's dietary needs are met, and Sierra has time to vibe with her influencer lifestyle. It's not that I resent giving, only that it's become my entire identity in this family. This Napa trip was supposed to change that. A 5-day escape to celebrate mom's 60th birthday, nestled in Vineyard Hills, sipping wine under string lights and healing old wounds. I had poured 3 months into every detail. I thought if I just got everything right, maybe this time they'd see me. I woke early that morning to set up a surprise picnic breakfast on the suite's wraparound balcony, fresh strawberries pastries from that French cafe Mom used to love, and a card I'd written at 2:00 a.m. when I couldn't sleep for worrying if I'd booked enough activities, but not too many. I even called down to Derek at the front desk to arrange her favorite white tulips in a vase. It was perfect, and for a moment I thought I'd done it. Mom smiled genuinely. She hugged me. Sierra even said, "Wow, this is actually nice." That was her version of a compliment. But then Sierra's phone buzzed. I watched her face light up. Marissa says she got us on the list at Ember Lounge in Sonoma. VIP patio seating, supposed to be insane. I blinked. "I thought we were doing the spa this afternoon, then the cooking class." Sierra waved it off. "The spa's booked all day anyway unless you're doing it solo. And cooking class, kinda corny." I looked to Mom, hoping she'd remember how much she'd wanted to learn to make gnocchi from scratch. Instead, she sighed. "It might be fun to see the lounge. You know how hard it is for Sierra to get time with her friends." There it was again, how hard it is for Sierra. As if I hadn't just moved a week's worth of deadlines to make this trip possible. As if I wasn't paying for 90% of it. I reminded them about the $200 non-refundable cooking class deposit. Sierra shrugged. "You're always obsessed with money." That's when Mom leaned in and said the sentence I will never forget. "Stop ruining the trip with your sister. Just leave." My throat closed. My brain screamed something, but I only nodded quiet. A breeze carried the scent of lavender and fresh pastries off the table I had arranged. I turned, walked inside, and began packing. I know what you're thinking. Why didn't I speak up? Why didn't I say, "No, this is my trip too"? Maybe because I was raised to anticipate disappointment, to keep the peace, to be the helper, the fixer, the invisible backbone holding things together, while everyone else unraveled. This trip had been my way of rewriting that script. 3 months ago, I sat on my apartment floor laptop, open notebooks splayed around me like a wedding planner, prepping a VIP event. I had a vision: 5 days in Napa, to celebrate Mom's 60th birthday, not just with luxury, but intention. A reset button for our family. I researched resorts with vineyard views and wellness amenities. I stalked Yelp for chef-driven farm-to-table restaurants that catered to dairy sensitivities and picky palates. I even called each wine tour company to ensure we weren't booked on the bachelorette party buses with plastic tiaras and tequila flasks. The final itinerary had color-coded highlights, backup rain plans, and thoughtful little details I knew my mom would never give herself. I booked us a suite at the Willow Grove Estate, $4,200 for 5 nights. Flights were an easy 2-hour hop from San Diego, but I upgraded all 3 of us to premium seating, $600 total, so Mom wouldn't have to deal with the stress of boarding group chaos. I arranged a full-day vineyard tour with a private driver, reserved spa treatments, and made a deposit on a hands-on Italian cooking class Mom had bookmarked 2 years ago. Total cost $6,500 from my savings. Mom contributed $1,200. Sierra promised to pitch in for some meals, but I'd mentally written that off. History taught me not to depend on that. I didn't just spend money, I spent hours visualizing this trip's emotional rhythm. I imagined us laughing in bathrobes during spa facials, clinking glasses under lantern-lit patios, maybe even having the kind of honest conversation we always avoid. But within 2 days of landing, the itinerary had been shredded. Sierra complained about the grandma vibe of Napa. She wanted music nightlife and content-worthy settings. So when Marissa, her online friend turned +1, invited her to some influencer event, Sierra jumped. And Mom, always eager not to rock the boat, followed. I kept trying to pivot. When they skipped the wine pairing dinner, I adjusted. When Sierra changed brunch to a cafe, Marissa liked better. I rescheduled our tasting at Belle Maison Vineyard, losing the deposit, of course. None of it mattered. Every time I tried to explain the cost or the effort behind the switch, I got hit with a variation of, "Don't be so rigid," or worse, "You're ruining the vibe." But I wasn't trying to control them. I was trying to give them something real, something beautiful, something that would say, "Look, I care enough to create this for you." And yet I could see it in their eyes. They didn't want curated elegance. They wanted noise, spontaneity selfies. Or maybe they just didn't want it from me. The truth settled in my gut that afternoon, on the balcony, just after Mom told me to leave. It wasn't about the trip. It never had been. It was about roles. Sierra got to be carefree. I was expected to serve and stay quiet. And this time I chose neither. The thing about being the responsible one in the family is that it becomes your whole identity before you even realize you had a choice. The hen dad left, I was 9. Sierra was 4, and Mom was hanging on by threads, working full-time, managing the house, cooking dinner while grading papers. She didn't ask me to grow up fast. But when the dishwasher broke or Sierra had a tantrum, she always looked at me. So I became the steady one, the extra adult in the room, and Sierra, she got to stay the baby. That dynamic calcified over time. By the time Sierra turned 16, she had a master's degree in getting rescued. Late homework, Mom wrote notes. Missed curfews. She's just expressive. When I needed money for college books, Mom hesitated. When Sierra asked for a new camera for her future career, it was delivered in 2 days. You might wonder, did I ever bring this up? Did I ever say, "Hey, I exist too"? Sure. Once. Thanksgiving 2 years ago. Sierra had forgotten to help with cleanup again, and when I brought it up, she cried. Mom said, "Rachel, can't you just let her be for once? She's not built like you. Not built like me." It was the perfect defense, wasn't it? Sierra didn't have to grow. She was protected under the dome of eternal fragility. The same dome was in full force even before our Napa trip began. I should have known it would go sideways when Sierra showed up to the airport 30 minutes late with 2 suitcases, no charger, and no idea what airline we were flying. I calmly reminded her Delta Terminal 2. She huffed. "God, you sound like a flight attendant. Can't you relax?" I bit my tongue. It was her classic deflection. The moment I held up a mirror, she turned it back into a weapon. On the flight, I watched as she charmed the attendants into extra snacks and spent the rest of the time ignoring both Mom and me, crafting Instagram captions for her wine country content series. Mom, meanwhile, complimented Sierra's eye for digital storytelling. Digital storytelling. That's what we're calling thirst traps now. The favoritism wasn't always malicious. Sometimes it was so casual, so reflexive, it felt like breathing. Like when we checked into the suite, and Sierra immediately took the master bedroom I'd arranged for Mom. "I need the bigger mirror for makeup," she explained, tossing her bag on the bed. Mom just smiled. She's got a point. So I gave Mom the room with the vineyard view and took the small corner room, no view, beside the boiler closet. Again, none of it mattered in isolation. It was the pattern that broke me, the drip of disrespect that became a flood, and always the same ending I sacrificed. She sparkled. Mom applauded her, then turned to me when something needed fixing. But I still wanted this trip to work. I thought maybe in a different setting, with no chores, no distractions, maybe we could reset. I didn't realize then that geography doesn't change dynamics. It just places them under a different light. The vineyards were beautiful. The sky was clear. but I was already drowning in a familiar undertow, the unspoken truth that my needs were optional. And Sierra, she was just getting started. The morning after the bedroom shuffle, I still held on to hope, white-knuckled and threadbare, but hope nonetheless. I woke early again. There was this hillside just behind the resort, accessible by a stone path lined with rosemary bushes. I'd scouted it during check-in, told Derek, our concierge, that I wanted to surprise my mom with a breakfast picnic there. He said he'd arrange everything: the tulips, the chilled mimosas, the lemon ricotta scones I specifically requested because they reminded Mom of her trip to Italy. The sun was just breaking over the valley as I walked up the path to double-check the setup. Everything looked perfect. Tablecloth fluttering in the breeze, silverware arranged with resort precision, a small handwritten note from me beneath her plate that read, "To the woman who did it all, let someone else take care of you today." I returned to the suite, humming with quiet anticipation. Sierra was still asleep, makeup streaked and tangled in her hair extensions. Mom was brushing her teeth. I told them to wear something casual but nice. I have a little surprise. 10 minutes later, we walked up the hill. Mom gasped, hand to her chest. "Oh, Rachel, this is beautiful." For a moment, just a flicker, I felt it land. That rare golden feeling that maybe finally I'd gotten through. We sat. We toasted. The food was perfect. Mom even laughed when I told her the napkins matched her favorite tea towels from home. Then Sierra's phone buzzed. Marissa again. Sierra didn't even apologize. Just read the message aloud like we were all in on the plan. She says there's a rooftop tasting in Yountville. Private invite only. She can sneak us in. It starts in an hour. I tried to mask the sting. But we're doing the spa at 11, remember. Then the cooking class at 2. Sierra rolled her eyes. This is a rare opportunity. These tastings have like 3-year wait lists. How would Marissa get in then? I asked. Silence. Mom looked between us. Rachel, we don't have to be so rigid. We can always reschedule the cooking thing. I swallowed hard. It's non-refundable. I told you that. I prepaid everything. Sierra smirked. Then you shouldn't have booked without checking with us first. That was the moment I knew the picnic didn't matter. That no matter how thoughtful or tailored or selfless I tried to be, it would never outweigh Sierra's whims. Not with Mom. Not in this family. Marissa arrived 20 minutes later, uninvited, but welcomed with open arms. She hugged Sierra like a long-lost sister and greeted my mother with over-familiar warmth, Mrs. Morgan. You look amazing, before giving me a perfunctory nod. We all walked back toward the suite together. I watched Sierra and Marissa swap filters and captions, plotting their afternoon content. I caught Mom stealing glances at me, as if she knew she should say something, but didn't know how. Back in the suite, I quietly canceled the spa appointments and called the cooking school to see if they could fill our 3 spots. They couldn't. That's $200 lost, I murmured almost to myself. Sierra flopped onto the couch. Chill, Rachel. You can write it off, right? Don't you guys have like business perks or whatever? I didn't respond. I just went to my room, shut the door, and stared at the itinerary still taped to the wall. It was color-coded, laminated, a joke now. I should have seen it coming, the shift from passive disrespect to active violation. But somehow I still gave them the benefit of the doubt, because that's what people like me are trained to do. We give even after the ledger's gone red. It happened the following afternoon. After they blew off the cooking class and skipped out on the spa, Sierra and Marissa decided to detox at the pool detox, being code for sunbathing, with Aperol spritzes, and filming slow-mo hair flips for Instagram reels. I went alone to the art gallery tour I'd planned. I was the only one who ever seemed to follow the itinerary anymore. When I returned to the suite, the air felt different, the kind of quiet that follows after something's been taken without permission. Mom was in her room with a cold compress over her eyes, claiming a headache. Sierra was out with Marissa again. I sat down finally alone and opened my phone to check my credit card app. Not because I suspected anything, but because I was budgeting, trying to keep tabs on what was left. That's when I saw the charge. 4 and 10 Willow Grove Spa. I blinked. Checked again. The time matched the same hour Sierra had been too tired for the cooking class. I walked to Mom's room and knocked gently. Did you go to the spa today? She peeked out groggy. No. Why? My stomach dropped. I waited until they got back. Sierra entered in a cloud of fruity perfume and high-volume laughter. "Hey," she said casually, tossing her bag on the counter. "We had the best massages ever. Marissa's therapist used this Himalayan salt balm. So luxe. You went to the spa?" I asked, voice steady. She nodded, not noticing the shift in my tone. "Yeah, it was a last-minute thing. Marissa had a voucher, and I figured we deserved a little treat after all that tension. And you used my credit card." That made her pause. "Well, yeah. I didn't think it was a big deal. You're handling all the trip stuff anyway." I looked at her stunned. "You charged $400 to my card without asking me." Sierra frowned. "Don't be dramatic. You make way more than I do. It's just a massage." Mom had wandered in by now, drawn by the tension. "What's going on?" "She used my card without permission," I said, holding my phone out like it was proof of something criminal. "Maybe it was." Mom rubbed her temples. "Sierra, you should have asked." "I thought she wouldn't care," Sierra muttered. "She's been throwing money around this whole trip." I laughed, sharp bitter. "Throwing money around, you mean planning booking, covering for your half-baked whims." "Rachel!" Mom's voice was low warning. "No, really. I paid for this trip. I gave up a full week of PTO during a product launch cycle. And somehow I'm the bad guy, because I expected basic respect." Sierra folded her arms. "You're always making it about money. Maybe we'd have fun if you weren't such a control freak." That was it. The final twist of the knife. I left the room. Not storming, just numb. I sat on the sweet balcony alone. The air smelled like rosemary and wine-soaked wood. I remember watching a bird land on the edge of the railing, tilt its head, and fly away. That's how I felt, tense, perched, one deep breath away from taking off. Only I wasn't sure where to go yet. The next morning, I didn't wake up early. I didn't make coffee or check the itinerary or scroll through confirmation emails to ensure everything was still in place. I lay in bed watching light move slowly across the ceiling and listening to the soft whir of the suite's air vent. I felt hollow, like a box someone had unpacked and left behind. By 10, I still hadn't heard a word from either of them. No apology, no mention of the spa charge, no offer to fix the situation or even acknowledge the damage. So I did the only thing I could think to do. I packed. I folded each outfit, neatly zipped up toiletries, unplugged chargers, and stacked everything in my carry-on. Then I sat down and wrote a note, 2 pages handwritten in clean block letters on hotel stationery. I listed every reservation still pending the Sunset Vineyard tour, the riverside dinner I'd prepaid for, even the floral arrangement scheduled to be delivered to the suite on Mom's actual birthday. I included confirmation codes, phone numbers, contact names. I signed it simply, "You're welcome to still enjoy the rest. I'm done." I placed the note on the dining table next to the vase of now wilting tulips, took one last look around the suite, and left. At the front desk, Derek barely hid his surprise. "Checking out early, Miss Morgan." I nodded. "Just me. My mother and sister are staying." He tilted his head with concern. "Would you like help arranging transportation?" "Yes, please. And could you make sure everything for Elaine Morgan is transferred to her name?" He smiled gently. "Absolutely. And if you don't mind me saying, I hope you get the peace you deserve, Ms. Morgan." That nearly broke me. Kindness always does when you've been holding and hurt. I booked the first flight I could find back to San Francisco. It wasn't cheap. I didn't care. I needed distance, fast. At the airport, I turned on my phone for the first time that day. And there they were, notifications lighting up my lock screen like a holiday tree. Instagram. Sierra had already posted a carousel of filtered snapshots, her in a satin-wrapped dress. Mom mid-laugh, holding a glass of rosé, both of them poolside with caption overlays that read, "Birthday bliss with my favorite person." I wasn't in a single photo, not even in the background. The captions read like gaslight poetry. "Wish my big sis didn't have to leave for work so soon. Still making the most of Mom's 60th. Grateful for Sunshine Rosé and second chances." Second chances? I hadn't even received a first apology. My phone buzzed again. A few friends had commented under the photos asking where I was. I wondered what Mom would say. I didn't have to wait long. A Facebook post from her appeared about an hour later. "Celebrating my 60th with Sierra. In beautiful Napa, Rachel had to leave early for work, but we miss her. Grateful for my girls." And just like that, I became a ghost in my own story. They had rewritten the ending before the final scene was even over. Turned a trip I funded, planned, and executed, into a narrative where I was the absentee sister, too busy, too career-focused, too something. I sat in my boarding gate phone in hand, stunned at the ease with which they erased me. But this time, I wasn't going to correct the record. I wasn't going to chase them for truth. I was just going to leave. There's something surreal about boarding a flight alone that you were supposed to take with family. You move through security like a ghost. You order your coffee like it might anchor you. You look around wondering if anyone can sense that you're carrying a grief that doesn't have a name. The plane boarded on time. No upgrades this time, just a standard middle seat tucked between a man in noise-canceling headphones and a woman flipping through a bridal magazine. I didn't mind. I wasn't in the mood to talk. I just wanted to disappear somewhere between altitude and descent. I texted no one. I answered nothing. My phone buzzed a few times in the pocket of my hoodie, but I let it. The motion of the aircraft settling into cruising altitude matched the quiet inside me, an exhausted kind of stillness, like my body knew it was finally safe to shut down. The flight attendants came by with drinks and snacks. I declined both. My stomach was too tight, coiled in something that wasn't quite anger and wasn't quite sadness, but the bitter hybrid of the two betrayal. I stared at the seat back in front of me and tried to replay the moment on the balcony over again. Did I misinterpret it? No, she'd said it, my own mother. Stop ruining the trip with your sister. Just leave. Maybe she didn't mean it literally. Maybe it came from stress, embarrassment, fatigue. But it didn't matter. In that moment, she chose comfort over confrontation. She chose Sierra's ego over my dignity. And that was the part I couldn't unhear. I had spent my entire adult life trying to win my mother's approval through deeds, paying bills, planning holidays, remembering details she herself forgot. I had hoped this trip would be different. That with enough planning and effort and aesthetic, I could finally earn not just gratitude, but belonging. Instead, I learned something else. People don't see effort when they're used to it being invisible. The woman next to me handed me a tissue without making eye contact. I hadn't realized I was crying until I felt the wetness trail down my chin. Thanks, I whispered. She nodded and went back to her magazine. Small kindnesses are like pinpricks after emotional burns. They hurt more than they should. We landed to a foggy San Francisco evening. I grabbed my bag from the overhead bin and walked out into the terminal with the quiet urgency of someone who just wanted to be alone in her own space. I didn't Uber. I took the train. It was slower, but it gave me time to think. Time to let the noise of travel buffer me from the silence waiting in my apartment. When I unlocked the door, I was greeted by stillness. My place smelled faintly of lavender cleaner and fabric softener. I hadn't left it expecting to come back early. The orchids on the windowsill were still blooming untouched. The stack of mail on the counter was undisturbed. I dropped my suitcase in the hallway and didn't bother unpacking. I just walked into my room, crawled onto the bed fully dressed, and stared at the ceiling. I wasn't just physically drained. I was done. Done explaining. Done contorting myself into the shape of the daughter they could appreciate. The last thought I had before I drifted into an exhausted, dreamless sleep was this. Maybe leaving wasn't a failure. Maybe it was the first real thing I've ever done for myself. The next morning, I didn't open my phone. I left it face down on the kitchen counter, notifications silently accumulating while I made coffee on autopilot. The quiet in my apartment was louder now. No clinking silverware, no Marissa's nasal laugh, no background hum of family bickering disguised as bonding. Just me. And the realization that this time I had truly walked away. It wasn't until late afternoon that I finally checked my phone. 17 missed calls. 12 from Mom, 5 from Sierra. Dozens of texts. I started reading from the bottom. The earliest ones were laced with heat. Mom, 3:14 p.m. I can't believe you'd just leave like that, after everything. Sierra, 3:17 p.m. Wow. Real mature Rachel, you ruined the whole vibe. Then the tone shifted. Confusion. Mom, 6:42 p.m. Are you back at the hotel? Can you at least tell me you're safe? Sierra, 7:05 p.m. You're seriously not answering so dramatic. Later, the fear crept in. Mom, 9:12 p.m. Rachel, please. I'm worried. Just text me you're okay. I scrolled through them without replying. Each message felt like a pebble thrown too late at a retreating train. Too little. Too performative. Not one word of ownership. No acknowledgement of what they had said or done. Just blame, confusion, and performative concern when silence became inconvenient. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt numb. Then came the calls to my friends. I knew this because Jessica, my best friend since college, called that evening. "Hey," she said, voice low and hesitant. "Your mom called me." I sat up straighter. "What?" She was worried. "Said she couldn't reach you and she didn't know if you were back home." She sounded rattled. "Did she say why I left?" Jessica paused. "She said there was a misunderstanding, that you got overwhelmed, that you took things too personally, that maybe you needed space, but she didn't expect you to actually fly home." I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. "She didn't mention the part where she told me to leave." "No," Jessica said quietly. "She didn't." I walked to my living room window, staring out at the quiet street below. They're rewriting it. Already. Making it about me being unstable or rigid or emotional. "You're not," Jessica said. "I don't care what they say, you did everything. And they took advantage." We hung up shortly after, but her words lingered like balm. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. Still, there was something about knowing your absence was more inconvenient than your presence had ever been that made the ache feel heavier. They weren't calling because they missed me. They were calling because they didn't know how to finish the trip without me. I poured a glass of wine, not fancy vineyard vintage, just the bottle from Trader Joe's I'd left in the fridge, and sat down to finally look through the rest of the texts. One in particular stood out. Sierra, 10:23 a.m. next day. "BTW, do you still have the reservation info for tonight's wine tour? They couldn't find it when we called. No apology, just a request for information." And underneath it, "You really could have just chilled and let Mom enjoy herself." That was the final nail. They didn't miss me. They missed the service I provided. But I was done being the travel agent, emotional sponge, and bank account in one. 3 days passed before I saw them again. It was Sunday evening, just after sunset, when my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I hadn't ordered food. Jessica hadn't texted about coming by. I peeked through the peephole and froze. Mom and Sierra, standing side by side, looking smaller than I'd ever seen them. I opened the door slowly, instinctively bracing myself. "You're supposed to be in Napa for 2 more days," I said, voice flat. Mom looked tired. Her suitcase sat behind her, like it had been dragged across more than distance. We came back early. Sierra wouldn't meet my eyes. She was clutching her phone like a security blanket. "Can we come in?" Mom asked. I hesitated, then stepped aside. We sat in my living room, all 3 of us perched awkwardly like strangers waiting for a job interview. The tension was so thick it could have bent the walls. No one knew where to start. It was Mom who finally spoke. "We need to talk, Rachel." I crossed my arms, not out of anger, but armor. "Why are you here?" "Because after you left, everything fell apart." Sierra nodded, eyes darting between us. "We couldn't figure anything out. We missed the vineyard tour because no one could find the reservation email. The restaurant couldn't locate our dinner booking. The confirmation code wasn't working." "I don't know." I almost wanted to laugh. Everything had been printed in the folder I left on the table. But of course they never looked. "Derek from the front desk said you left detailed instructions," Mom added. "We just didn't read them. I guess we thought you'd always just handle it." She looked down, ashamed. That was new. After we missed the air balloon ride, Sierra said we just stayed in the hotel room and watched cable. It was really boring. And quiet, Mom added. That quiet had felt like relief to me. To them, apparently, it was unbearable. I still hadn't said anything. Mom leaned forward. "Rachel, I am so sorry. I didn't realize how much you were doing until we couldn't do anything without you. And that's not right. I treated your effort like a given, like something owed to us. But you deserved appreciation, support, respect, not what we gave you." She exhaled deeply. Her voice cracked. "And I should never have said those words to you on the balcony. I was frustrated and embarrassed, and I lashed out at the only person trying to hold it all together. I regret it deeply." I looked at Sierra. She didn't look defensive for once, just stripped down. "I was jealous," she said. "You have your life together, your apartment, your job, your friends. I wanted to feel like I brought something too, so I invited Marissa to seem cooler or something. And instead, I made everything worse." I let their words settle in the room like dust. I didn't speak immediately. I needed to feel if they were real. Mom reached into her purse and pulled out a check. It's not the full amount, but it's a start. We're paying you back for the trip, every dollar. I didn't take the check, not yet. But I looked at her differently. Like maybe this wasn't just guilt, maybe it was accountability. And we're going to fix this, she added. For real, if you'll let us. I breathed in. Not forgiveness, not yet. But maybe the start of something more important. 2 weeks after that knock at my door, we sat in a therapist's office together. It was Mom's idea. I made the call, she said one afternoon, standing in my kitchen. If we're going to repair this, we need help. Sierra nodded beside her, surprisingly quiet. I agreed, cautiously. Not because I expected miracles, but because I needed to try on my terms this time. The sessions were hard. That first hour alone was mostly tears and silence, interrupted by my therapist gently asking questions like, when did you start feeling like your voice didn't matter? I didn't even know how to answer. There were too many examples, too many years of swallowing hurt. Mom admitted things I didn't think she'd ever say. That she had placed the burden of emotional stability on me. That Sierra had been her guilt compass for leaving our father, and I had been her emotional partner unfairly. Sierra owned her part too. She admitted how often she deflected, leaned on being the baby, and how she resented me because she felt like a constant disappointment by comparison. None of it was easy, but it was real. We didn't magically become a Hallmark movie family. There were setbacks, moments where Mom still over-accommodated Sierra, or Sierra posted some tone-deaf photo caption, or I snapped and reverted to sarcasm. But there was movement, and that's what mattered. About 6 months later, Mom suggested we try again. A new trip. Just a weekend, she said. Nothing fancy. A lakeside cabin. We'll all plan it together. Budget split equally. Shared calendar invites. Sierra added, I'll handle the groceries and meal planning. I already started a spreadsheet. I raised an eyebrow. She grinned. Color-coded, just like yours used to be. We went, just the 3 of us. 2 nights in a modest wood-paneled cabin near Lake Arrowhead. No velvet ropes, no influencers, no itinerary gridlocks. Just games, hiking boots, and a campfire. On the second night, after we grilled veggie burgers and drank cocoa on the deck, Mom lifted her mug toward me. To Rachel, she said, who taught us that walking away isn't giving up. It's sometimes the bravest thing you can do. Sierra chimed in, her voice steady. And to not taking each other for granted anymore. We clinked mugs. The fire crackled. The stars blinked down like tiny yeses. I didn't respond right away. I just looked out over the dark lake and let that moment hold me. Not because everything had been fixed, but because for once I wasn't invisible. This time, I didn't plan every detail. I didn't pay for everything. I didn't carry the weight of making everyone happy. This time I just showed up, and that was enough. Have you ever felt like the invisible glue in your family? Like the one who plans, pays, fixes, but is never fully seen? I've been there. And I've learned that sometimes walking away isn't the end. Sometimes it's the beginning of being heard. If you've ever been the responsible one in your family, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. How did you reclaim your voice? If this resonated, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need a gentle reminder that boundaries are a form of love, especially toward yourself. And remember, being the strong one doesn't mean being silent. You deserve rest. You deserve peace. You deserve to be seen.